After dominating the first 2 seasons of the Corporate Chess League, Edward Jones was shocked by Enterprise in the 2020 finals by John Boyer's last-second checkmate in an overtime thriller. Undeterred, Edward Jones reclaimed their fame and got their name back on the board in the spring 2021 season. Now it's the fall 2021 season. The scores have been reset to 0. Will Edward Jones' dynasty reign on, or will a new powerhouse emerge? Find out now!
Well, like Mike said, the time is now. Welcome back, everybody, to the 2021 fall season of the Corporate Chess League. My name is Caleb Denby, and as you just relived the excitement of the playoffs of last season, we're looking forward to more excitement this season for sure. It's going to be a great season, but why don't we take a look at some of the details here as we get into the format for the league. Of course, each season is 12 weeks long with 2 games played each week. All the matches are played on Thursday nights on chess.com. We're keeping it virtual for this season for now. We might do some hybrid events a little bit later on in the season, but still keeping it virtual tonight. Players play 4 total games each night. It takes about 2 hours, and the time control for each game is going to be 10 minutes per side with no increment and no delay. That's how you end up with those crazy time scrambles like we saw in the intro. Of course, the scoring for everything is a little bit complicated. You get 20 points for winning your team's match, and you get 1 extra point per board point. So if you win your game individually, but your team loses, your team still gets 1 point for that. And speaking of teams, who's playing this year? Let's take a look. We have Worldwide Technology, Enterprise, Edward Jones, Bayer, Ascension, and Darty, all making a return to the Corporate Chess League. Now, thus far, Edward Jones has been the team to beat, the dominant team. They reclaimed their first place spot at the end of last season, but Enterprise definitely always gives them a run for their money. So, what's going to happen this year? Will it be another Enterprise Edward Jones showdown, or will one of these other teams prove to be a dark horse and take home the gold for themselves? Speaking of taking home the gold, what is it that these teams are playing for? The prizes this season is what everybody wants to know. The winning team will be declared the 2021 Corporate Chess League champions. They also are going to get their name engraved on that very nice wooden board that Mike was holding up earlier, and they will be in possession of that board until the next season. The winning team also gets some free training, a 2-hour strategy session with the resident grandmaster of the St. Louis Chess Club. That way they come back even stronger the following year. Of course, as I said, I'm Caleb. I will be hosting tonight, and I will be providing commentary all over all of the action going on chess.com. I want to say hello to all the viewers out there in the YouTube chat. Hello to NJF and Ederson, who says, Viva Argentina. So, international viewers already. It's going to be a really exciting event this coming up here tonight, especially because we have some very exciting pairings. Who's playing who? Well, we have 2 rounds here tonight. In round 1, Edward Jones, your reigning champions, will take on Worldwide Technology. Enterprise, your reigning runner-ups, I guess, will be taking on Bayer, and Ascension is going to be taking on Darty. Now, that's round 1, but I want to already give you a sneak peek at round 2, because in round 2, we're going to have a big rematch between Edward Jones and Enterprise. You know, I don't want to say there's bad blood between these teams, but it is always a close fight whenever these 2 teams play each other. So definitely looking forward to that one. Now in round 1, I think we're going to mostly keep an eye on the Ascension Darty match, but for now we are waiting for the games to get rocking and rolling. Let's see if the players are coming online yet over on chess.com. Looks like they are still connecting. The scheduled start time is in just 1 minute, so hopefully they can get underway soon. But until then, how's it going, chat? Yes, hello. Hello to IQI. Hello to Mohammed. Hello to Carlos, who asked me to say hello to Brazil. So hello, anyone else watching from Brazil. And hello From Greece, someone is saying hello. So hello to Antonis. In the meantime here, still trying to pull up some games once they get going. But we will await patiently. All right, looks like Gilmore's online for Ascension. Let's see if Maurice is online. Not yet. Oak Ave. Yeah, still waiting. A lot of the players still getting connected here. It does take some time to get these rounds underway. And wow, it's a global audience tonight. Fidel from Spain. Texas Joe. How can we forget about Texas Joe? And everybody else out there as well. And wow, huge developments happening on my pairing spreadsheet. As I speak, Edward Jones players are dropping like flies. It looks like some of them maybe had to pull out at the last second here. They are being removed from the spreadsheet. So not good news for Edward Jones, but we'll see if they can keep it together here for their big matchups. In the meantime, why don't I give you a quick rundown of some of the players on Edward Jones. So I'm looking at actually a new player who I did not recognize. Justini Linguini will be board 1 for Edward Jones tonight, and that is definitely a new name. Of course, Vishal Bharadwaj was the hero for Edward Jones last time, but looks like he might not be able to play tonight. Of course, Edward Jones also fielding Alex Kerford, Alex, the league commissioner, who helps us organize all these things. We're definitely going to be keeping an eye on his games. Fishers of Men, also a regular on the Edward Jones squad. And Mckess, another new player, I believe, who I have not had the pleasure of following too many of his games. Of course, in round 1, they're up against Worldwide Technology, as we said. And I'm seeing some regulars over there as well. Of course, I always like to root for DV Dutch. He has made a good habit of showing up to some of my classes and lectures throughout the year. So we'll see if that special instruction is going to pay off for him. And as we continue on here, we're still looking for those games to get started. More of the players are coming online, but none of them in their games yet. So we shall continue waiting. Who else we got? Of course, Chess Hulky for Enterprise is always a regular. And I believe the highest rated player in the event, Kamikaze Knight, is making a return for Enterprise. Sort of a hero for the Enterprise team last season, but unfortunately was not able to get it done at the very, very end with Edward Jones once again taking home the gold. Moneyballin', always a pleasure to watch. And Kendulum, who I think may be new. That name is not ringing too many bells for me. Over on the Bayer side, we've got Vindy playing, Encline Bayer, just Bayer probably, and NMC Jin. Not a lot of names I'm recognizing anymore. I think these are some new players that we'll definitely have to keep an eye on. Ascension, as always, has Frank Tan and S. Gilmore, and Oak Ave. Who could forget Oak Ave? I seem to remember some very exciting games that came down to Oak Ave's board. Oak Ave, I think the lowest rated player on the Ascension squad, but was definitely able to come through with some clutch victories in last year's season. Okay, so just to reiterate some things, the time controls tonight are going to be 10 minutes with a 0-second increment. And it should be a lot of fun. Okay. Still looking for those games to get underway here. I get the feeling that some of these last-minute dropouts might have caused some delays for us, but hopefully we do get underway before too long here. And hello, Steve, Sweetman, in the chat. We're always rooting for the wonderful team over at Worldwide Technology. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sweetman, but MJC3801, it might just be that the name is not super memorable to me, but I think that might be a new board 1 heading the Worldwide Technology team. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Hello to Brian Ketterin, who I think might be playing. Maybe not. I don't know why that name sounded so familiar. But, okay, still trying to get a hold of some of these players over here on chess.com. It looks like more and more are coming online, but still no games. Let's see, is Chess Holke online yet? Oh, Alex Kerford is online, our league commissioner, and hopefully before too much longer we get these games going. I'm really ready to start talking about some chess. Hello to Leandro, another from Brazil. Wow, I never realized how many, just how far chess is spreading with these little broadcasts that we do. Okay, who else we got? M-S-T-A-D-T-E-R. What a weird name, NS Tadter. I'm not going to have a fun time pronouncing that all night. Darty is representing, of course, Legos with a user called I Love Legos 2. And of course, he should have said I love Lego bricks. Ah, and here, now you can see what I'm looking at too. This is our magical pairing spreadsheet. And as you can see, some controversy on the Edward Jones team. I actually spoke with Alex before the broadcast tonight, and he let me know that unfortunately they had to do some roster changes at the last minute. It seems like their team had a lot going on tonight. So we'll see if they can still pull it together with their 4 super strong players remaining. And of course, down here, I was shouting out, I love Legos too. So these are your round 1 matchups. Once again, of course, when there are extra players on each team, they still get to play some chess, but it just does not contribute to their match score. However, they still are playing for points. If they win, each win does add to their Grand Prix point total. Of course, that's what the ultimate goal is. You do well in the regular season, in the Grand Prix, you qualify for the playoffs, and then you get to take home that trophy. Why don't we take a peek over round 2 as well? This is what I was really highlighting earlier. We have Vishal, who was the hero last season, unable to play tonight, it looks like. So the mystery, Justini Linguini, will be heading up Edward Jones against Enterprise. That's that rematch of the ages that everyone is looking forward to here. Will Edward Jones be able to prove dominance once again, or will Enterprise dethrone the champions? Worldwide Technology is also going to be taking on Darty a little bit later on, with Ascension against Bayer to round out the group. So I want to hear from you guys in the chat. Are there any teams you're looking forward to watching? I'm looking forward, definitely, to that Edward Jones Enterprise matchup. And round 1, I think I am going to focus on Ascension Darty. Now, I don't want to give away too much, but I believe the CEO of Darty is an avid chess fan these days. I think his name is Ron. I had the pleasure of talking to him once or twice. And so when the head of your company is taking an interest in chess, I expect that the team is going to be following suit here. So we'll see if they've been working hard over the long off season between these leagues. And it just goes to show, it looks like for the most part, the Darty team's all here. They all seem to be online. So still waiting for those games to get underway, but every member of the Darty team is on chess.com online. And now we just need some chess games. We really do just need some chess games. Okay, so as we continue to wait, how's it going in the chat room? How is it going? Lots of interesting emojis. I didn't know YouTube had all these cool little emojis going on, like this little waving guy. Very interesting stuff. In the meantime, I guess I'll talk. Oh, wait a second, that's a chess game. I'm looking at a chess game. All right, looks like the board 1 matchup between Ascension and Darty. Of course, Frank T. Tan playing for Ascension and C-Cell playing for Darty has gotten underway. So hopefully the rest of those games are going to start to follow suit here, but this, I believe, is our first game of the night. And what an interesting one as well. We have ourselves a Sicilian, and White's making a really interesting choice here to develop this bishop out to c4 so early. Now, I'm no Sicilian aficionado, but sometimes you start to regret this because this bishop can really get kicked around. Once black is going to break in the center or on the queen side with these type of pawn pushes, this bishop's going to have to move again, and it might end up being a little bit of a waste of time. These players, though, not pausing for anything. We saw a quick d4, a quick capture on d4, and just no time is being wasted. I wonder if this is just all, super strong theory. I might be getting outclassed here by Frank Tan and C-Cell. To my eyes, though, it really looks like something might be going wrong with this bishop on c4. It's a loose piece. It's not defended. It's also opposite this queen on c7. If black were ever to make a good discovery with this knight hitting this bishop, then he's really going to have some big issues. Now, though, we see bishop back to d3. White securing this bishop on a more safe square. And once again, more games are getting underway. I'm looking here. We've got Justini Linguini has made his official appearance. And while we pull up some of those games, let's continue seeing who we've got playing so far. Oh, and now the games are just flowing in. Everybody is playing. Let's get Chess Hulky followed. Let's get Kamikaze Knight followed. And we'll have plenty of action to go over here. Those players are amateurs, yes, so not professionals in the chess world, but professionals in the business world is what we like to say. And yeah, we've got the game back up for you, so things are really moving quite quickly here. I know last season we had a lot of games being decided on the clock, so maybe players have, heeded my warnings finally. Better to have a bad position in more time than a good position and no time at all. Although we do see Frank now jumping in with knight e6. This is a pretty nasty fork. I'm not sure I would want to have black's position anymore. Looks like Frank up to a significant advantage. Why don't we take a look at some of the other boards in this Ascension Doherty matchup? I am looking for Oak Ave down here. Oak Ave against Mstadter? I don't know. And seemingly opposite the Frank Tan game, these players are moving at a snail's pace. Only 4 moves on the board. We see a really early knight c6 here by Mstadter, running into d5 and now f4. And white's just trying to come after this knight, use all these extra free tempes hitting the knight to get a big strong center, and try to prove to black, you're not going to have as much space. You're going to have a really tough time bringing your pieces into the game if I control all this space. Ooh, but then we actually see white getting a little bit overzealous maybe, already going with f5 as well. And there is such a thing as pushing the pawns too far. Black now is going to try to claim that these pawns are overextended and actually jump back in to some of those squares that these white pawns have left behind. f5 definitely not my move of choice. Now black has this strong knight over here on e5. It's going to be able to develop naturally with knight f6 behind it and break up these pawns pretty directly with a move like e6 or even c6. And yeah, c6 is Mstadter's choice. Off to a good start for the player who seems to be a little bit outrated. Who else are we looking for? We are looking for I Love Legos 2 against Maurice GP. In this case, Team Lego is Team Doherty, and Maurice is playing for Ascension, of course. And what's going on in this game? It looks like a little bit of a fork, a little bit of a double attack. Of course, this is one of the most common tactics that slightly lower level players run into quite a bit. You want to put all your pieces in the center, but when you do so, sometimes they're just awkwardly placed, and one little pawn can cause a lot of damage, attacking both knight and bishop. Legos gonna have a difficult time saving both pieces, going to be going down a piece here. But worse than that, Legos is also in the think tank, spending all of their time here trying to figure it out. And yeah, not good to be down on the clock with a bad position. Once again, the clock is going to be very, very important. Mark my words, the clock is all. Okay, with that, why don't we try to find this S. Gilmore game against Desrat. This is the last game in the matchup between Ascension and Doherty. Of course, S. Gilmore playing for Ascension and Desrat playing for Doherty. So let's see what's going on here. Once again, Ascension with the rating advantage here, and seemingly a pretty good position. White controlling the center. Desrat going for more of a modern approach, developing these bishops out to their fianchettoed squares, and only later going after the center with a break like e5. White, for the most part here, just staying super calm, staying more conservative, only going for this d4 pawn, not going for any type of early e4 breaks against this Dutch setup. And yet another interesting game. And as I was saying that the clock is going to be everything, we already have a result. We already have a result here. So C-Cell, maybe taking that advice a little bit too drastically. We saw, of course, this knight land on e6, attacking the queen and the rook, giving C-Cell the disadvantage here. So he kept up the pressure on the clock, playing nearly instantly for the rest of this game. However, instantly doesn't mean well. Knight b6 just loses this knight. And then a little bit afterwards here, we're going to see disaster strike. Pawn takes on c4, queen takes on c4. And then C-Cell just moving too quickly, does not see the threat. 1 second to play the move rook c8, and then the queen falls, and C-Cell has to resign. So maybe, a little bit too quickly there, C-Cell. It does take some time to play these chess games. With that being said, let's head back over to that board 2 matchup between Ascension and Darty. We're looking at S. Gilmore against Desrat. And that e4 break actually did come, and S. Gilmore showing some real understanding of these positions. He has placed his pieces well in the center of the board, and now he is opening up a file for his rook to get some activity and join the game. This is some really good early middle game play, and I really am not a fan of this move, knight c6 by Desrat. I think here, maybe you can claim that white was just a little bit too quick breaking with e4. Playing something like pawn takes on e4, I think would have given white a lot more trouble. If white takes this back, then black's going to be able to capture, and you might have an attack on this bishop on f4. Could have actually been some real problems for Gilmore. That's why we always say loose pieces drop off. You want to make sure your pieces are safe and sound before going for these kinds of breaks. So e4, but then black does not take, allowing white to capture on f5. Now after knight h5, white simply moves the bishop, and white's going to have some really nice pressure down this e file here. Black is going to be getting this pawn back, or could even consider taking here, although for the moment that might be a little bit risky due to bishop c4 tactics. But yeah, definitely white for choice with this nice pressure down the e file. And wow, this is a bold move by black. He's not going to take it lying down, as they say. He goes h6, trying to drive this bishop back. But I have to wonder if this is the right approach, making all of these light squared weaknesses around the king. I think black might be playing with some fire here. I kind of suspect the idea is to go g5 and actually g4, trying to harass this knight and take away more defenders of this d4 pawn. And that's what we're seeing develop. But I mean, I have to wonder, my spider sense is tingling. Bat sense, I don't know. Whichever superhero has the sixth sense, that's the one that's tingling right now. Can white play some sacrifices and go after this black king just very directly? Oh, and we have a Worldwide Technology fan in the chat. So speaking of that, let's see if we can check in on 1 or 2 of the Worldwide Technology games. Speaking of, huge results on board 1 between Edward Jones and Worldwide Technology. The newcomer, Giustini Linguini, seems to not be having the easy ride he might have hoped for as board 1 on Edward Jones, facing off against DV Dutch, whose rating, by the way, definitely is not accurate. I know this guy is much stronger than 1070. DV Dutch, of course, who attends some of my classes. I haven't seen him in a while, though, so hopefully he'll come back, continue his chess training. But we have a Benko Gambit in this game, then seems to develop along fairly normal lines. This interesting move, rook a6, is actually a nice idea that helps black slide the rest of the major pieces over in order to continue attacking on the queen side, getting that queen side counterplay. And yeah, we do actually see queen a8 by, I was going to say David, that's his real name, by DV Dutch. Then he reroutes this knight to e5. And this is just classy stuff. This is a classy Benko. Although I have to say, this e6 move is always a little bit scary. I think it's perfectly fine here. The rook on a6, well placed to help defend this pawn on d6, but you do have to be cautious whenever you play this pawn break. We get a trade on e5, white expanding with f4, and then, a very weird trade on c3. Definitely don't know how I feel about that one. But everything seemed to be under control. DV Dutch gets his pawn back and then actually starts just collecting the pieces here. Up in exchange and pushes his passed pawn for victory, and that's going to be a victory for DV Dutch. Now, of course, I want to point out that these players do not just play only one game with each other. These are 2-game-long matches, so each player is going to get a chance for revenge in their second game. Speaking of a chance for revenge, it looks like this first game between Okav and M. Statter did not end well for M. Statter. I was praising his opening play, I believed, but things went wrong very, very quickly. Well, wasn't so much praising his as questioning Okav's. Early pressure on these super advanced pawns can be kind of scary, but yeah, definitely now's not the time to back down with your pieces like this. And then with the spatial advantage, we see an unfortunate blunder here, and then the light squares just fell apart. Check, and then, oh no, the queen falls, the rook falls, and checkmate in just 20 moves. So not a good start for M. Statter. Now let's see what he can do against Okav in game 2, and it looks like disaster has already struck. He starts with the Grob, the fan favorite Grob, but of course the Grob is always going to come with some very serious risks. So g4, e4, takes, and then yeah, this rook is just hanging on h1. So rough start for M. Statter. Okav scoring some very nice points for Ascension, and I think that's going to be the story of that match. Ascension just seems to have that rating edge on most boards. Definitely an uphill battle for Darty to catch up. In the meantime, let's see who else is playing as we take a look around here. Let's see if I can pull up our lovely Commissioner's game. Let's see how Alex is doing. If I close one or two of these, he should be able to get pulled up here. There he is, Alex Kerford, with the white pieces, and they still seem to be in round 1. Now, Alex and Sweetman, I think, are no strangers. I seem to remember them playing at least a few games in previous seasons. So let's see how this interesting battle is shaping up here. And boy, it is a very interesting position. We have, Black sporting this very nice protected passed pawn on e4. And I say that, it's no longer protected, but it's becoming more passed by the second. e2, e1 is the idea. Will he be able to make it all the way down the board, or will Alex be able to catch this pawn? We shall see. In the meantime, of course, White's position isn't totally dead by any means. He has this f-pawn in exchange, and you might see some kind of kingside push a little bit later on. With that being said, I think Black might have a very interesting move here that could put Alex under the gun. And we'll see if he finds it. We'll stick on this for just a moment. And he does not find it. Bishop b3 by no means is a bad move, but I think this was the idea. If you simply go here, there's no way to stop this pawn from queening, and White's going to have to give up the bishop. So Alex definitely needs to find some way, either this move or this move, just some way to stop that bishop idea. Of course, now he does it with a third idea, g3, just defending the square directly. But still going to be a very interesting game. Black now has captured more than one pawn over here on the queen side, but White's probably going to be able to collect on e2. And if White can stop this b pawn, can get his own pawns rolling, maybe Alex is in there with a shout. So interesting game for Worldwide Technology against Sweetman. Sweetman for Worldwide Technology against Edward Jones. And as I'm looking at the scores coming in here, it looks like a fairly level match between Edward Jones and Worldwide Technology. But with those last second dropouts, it looks like they're being counted as double forfeits. So bad news for Edward Jones. If that is the case, if they are dealing with three forfeits in their matches, that's not going to be ideal. Going to be definitely an uphill battle for them in this matchup then. In the meantime, let's get back to our main matchup here, Ascension versus Darty. We've got C-Cell versus Frank Tan on board 1, and I'm glad to see C-Cell taking a little bit more time in this game. Of course, in round 1, C-Cell blitzed his way out to a losing position, not spending really any time at all. But in this case, taking a little bit more time, and I think it's working out for him a little bit. He's got a very interesting position, double-edged to be sure, but so far, looks like neither side has hung any pieces, which means this game is a success in my book. Trent's asking, who are these players? Not sure what the Corporate Chess League is. So, of course, this is our fall season for the Corporate Chess League. It is an event for St. Louis organizations and corporations to test their mettle over the chessboard. So everyone you see playing here tonight represents a St. Louis company and is fighting for their company, for their name, for their recognition as strong chess players. Okay, we get queen back to c7 now. And yeah, I think Frank Tan is making a lot of good points here. He's saying, yeah, I'm going to continue my pawn push on the queen side. At the same time, your pawns over here might actually be a little bit vulnerable if you can't prove it right away. So we definitely need to see some active play by C-Cell, or else this game could start turning very, very quickly. And yeah, rook e1, these moves just seem a little bit slow to me. I think definitely we had to see a move like e6 on the last turn, because now, after something like b5, the pieces just get swatted away for white. All the attackers start retreating, and the pawn storm keeps coming. That being said, we don't see b5 by Frank. I think b5 definitely the best move in that position. Instead, we get rook e8, and it just feels like both players are focusing on sort of the wrong thing now. Why do we care so much about attacking this e-pawn one time? We should be caring about launching these pawns down the board and checkmating the white king and the black king. But okay, after knight d3, it's not too late for Frank. Frank can definitely still go for ideas like pawn to b5, and we do see it happening here. However, it's a little bit less convincing than it was in the previous position, because now this bishop's just going to slide into d5. Maybe white can consider capturing on c5, and it's going to be an interesting battle, to be sure. Okay, checking back in, let's do another look around the rest of the matchups here between Ascension and Darty. We've got S. Gilmore against Des Rats. Looks quite good for S. Gilmore. An extra queen is an extra queen. This move should lead to checkmate quite shortly if black wants to take. Then we can come over with this rook. Check, check, checkmate. And that'll be the end of that. Instead, we see h3, a good move, because actually, I should highlight here, I just did not even look at the placement of black's remaining major piece. But if you were to play f6, you actually get a pretty cold shower in the form of rook c1, which would have been back rank mate. So h3, the responsible move to prevent that back rank checkmate. And then S. Gilmore does get the job done. Okay, now those players are set to begin their second game of the round. In the meantime, let's check back in on board 3, which is, of course, Maurice against I Love Legos 2. I get the feeling this is one of the few remaining games from game 1 of the round. And unfortunately for Legos down on the clock and down on the board. Looks like they're trying to go for some stalemate ideas, perhaps sacrificing all their remaining pieces and then trying to make it so their king has no remaining legal moves. But with just a second on the clock, it's not even going to matter. White doesn't even need to make a queen because the clock will do the checkmating for you. And then a nice ad on the screen. Okay, continuing on. Let's check board 4. And yeah, board 4 going about as expected after seeing the opening. The Grob, Not a very good opening, to be honest with you guys. It does come with a lot of downsides, and those downsides, once again, became very evident very early on in this game, weakening these light squares. And then, unfortunately, for Mckess, just did not see the attack on the rook, or at least did not see how to prevent it. Black goes up a rook, and now I believe has checkmate in 1. Although, notably, that move would be stalemate. This would be stalemate, but no. No such stalemate for Mckess. Oak Ave knows better and just plays the checkmate in 1. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that win is actually securing victory in the match for Ascension over Darty. It was a clean sweep in the first game, and now with that first win in the second game, it looks like Ascension's lead is now insurmountable over Darty. So I am going to start focusing on a different match then. So why don't we check in, see how Enterprise is doing against, who are they playing? Against Bayer. So let's see if I can follow Chess Hulky. Here we go. Chess Hulky playing for Enterprise. As always, a pleasure to watch his games. We've got an interesting position here. It looks like Chess Hulky off to a good start in the first game of his matchup. Has a full point there, and ooh, that last move doesn't look like a winner to me. Looks like this knight on c6 is being left in the dust. Not ideal for Incline Bear, for Bayer. Okay, looks like Chess Hulky has this one under control. Why don't we check in on the highest rated player in the event, Kamikaze Knight, sporting that clean, that slick 2200 rating. He's up against Vindy, whose rating may only be 1400, but I remember he's quite the tough customer in these events, so definitely another interesting game. We see Vindy breaking in the center pretty early on. It's a little bit of a strange opening with 1d3. I wonder if this was on purpose, or if this was potentially just a mouse slip. d3, and then we see Vindy going for an e4 break. Very uncommon opening here for white, but we'll see how it works out for him. We'll see how it works out. And then questions from the chat. Do you think the Benoni defense is as boring as I think it is? I think the Benoni is quite interesting, actually. Benoni is a very interesting opening. Carlos likes the gambits. Yeah, but the Grob, there are better ways to have fun in your chess games than by playing the Grob. You know, there's better ways to do it. Better ways to do it. Okay, well, this game off to a fairly slow start. It looks like both sides taking their time since it is such an uncommon opening. Let's see how Moneyballin is doing. Oh, and it looks like Moneyballin is actually complete. His games for the round are complete. He's split with his opponent 1-1. And just for clarity here, I'm looking at the scores. It looks like Enterprise also has already scored 4 points in their match. So if they can just get a half point from any of the remaining games, they will also secure victory in their match over Bayer. That being said, let's check in on somebody new. Kendulum is not a name I recognize, and it's not a good... Wait, no, it is a good position. Kendulum has black here. We'll see if they are well equipped to do the king and queen checkmate. It looks like some strange technique is going on here. Some strange technique approaching from opposite sides with the queen and the king. Will Kendulum be able to find the main point? You want to block this king off on the edge of the board. You don't want to try to checkmate in the middle of the board. And oh boy, I sense a stalemate coming, everybody. I sense a stalemate coming. Oh, will it be a stalemate? Or is Kendulum a super genius? That's checkmate. That's checkmate. Not the most orthodox way of forcing checkmate with the king and the queen, but you can't argue with the results. You can't argue with the results. So Kendulum is the hero for Enterprise here. With that point, Enterprise has officially won their match against Bayer. In the meantime, I think that the match is decided. Of course, the remaining games still have a big impact over our total standings because even after you win the match, When you win the match, you get 20 points towards the Grand Prix, but you also get points for your each individual boards. So if a team wins 8-0, then they actually get 28 points towards the Grand Prix. And if a team wins 5-3, then they only get 25 points. That other team, they still get 3 points. So each and every game remains important towards those Grand Prix standings, which is really what matters at the end of the day. So checking in here, it looks like we don't have too much more development in this game between Vindy and Kamikaze Knight. Vindy really taking it slow. It makes me think that Vindy might not be as familiar with the opening that he chose here. Maybe this move 1d3 was in fact just a slip. It doesn't look like Vindy's super confident with what's going on. We see this interesting idea, Knight h5. This has actually appeared in a couple of the games that we took a look at so far today. And it's just an idea, whenever you bring a bishop out like this, your bishop looks really active sitting on a square like f4 or g5. But sometimes bishops are actually quite good on their starting squares. You'll oftentimes see maybe like a bishop drop back to f1 even, or a bishop staying on c1 or c8 for a long time. And it might seem like, hey, what are they doing? Why aren't they developing their bishops? But whenever you bring the bishops out too early, they sometimes, become targets. They're easy to kick around. They're long-range pieces, and they can be kicked around by short-range pieces when they are so close to them. This pawn now hitting the bishop with only the g5 square left to go to. We might actually see black going for some type of expansion over here on the king's side just to continue the relentless harassment of the star-squared bishop. Somebody ought to put a stop to this. And yeah, as always, if you're just joining the chat, thank you so much for watching. This is the start of our fall season of the Corporate Chess League. We are looking at games between members of local St. Louis corporations, all fighting for their name on the the trophy chessboard. And there they are, the corporations competing tonight. Once again, Worldwide Technology, Enterprise, Ascension, Edward Jones, Bayer, and Darty Business Solutions. So that's who's playing here tonight. And it's looking like we are getting some clarity here in all of our matches. Edward Jones actually had 4 players drop out, it looks like, right at the last minute. So they were saddled with 4 forfeits in their matchup against Worldwide Technology. I don't even think they could mathematically overcome that deficit, even if they won all of their games. So rough start for them. And on the other matchups, our main matchup was this one between Ascension and Darty, and it looks like Ascension has clinched the match victory in that, but let's stick with them here. Let's see how Desrat and S. Gilmore are doing in their second game. So Desrat hoping to improve over that first game loss, but actually, looking at this position here, it looks like black is already firmly in control. We have this knight retreating, attacking this bishop, and unfortunately this knight is just attacked twice. It's unable to move out of the way, because if it moves out of the way, then you get checkmated. So that's why we see Desrat just going, kind of wild here, just playing something like c4, trying to find counterplay somewhere else, but it's not going to be enough. S. Gilmore just going up a full clean piece here. By the way, black was already up a pawn, and it looks like S. Gilmore is in very good position to win this game. What else is going on? Let's check in with I Love Legos 2 up against Maurice GP. And this one seems to be a close fight still. Seems to be a close fight. Nobody's up any pieces. And I like this last move by white. I'm never really a fan too much of putting your pieces on squares where they aren't defended. It just makes them really loose and vulnerable to tactics. For example, if, knight f3 could ever be played with check attacking the bishop on c3, it might be good. Of course, knight f3 in this position, though, not good, because the queen can take and defend the bishop, though. So now I would hope to see something like queen a1, and look at that, it appears on the board. Legos showing some understanding here, making a very strong battery on this long diagonal. This knight now is actually pinned to this bishop. It cannot move, and some difficult decisions are heading black's way now. We'll see how Maurice tries to solve these problems with just 5 minutes left on the clock. Just 5 minutes on the clock. And Adi Chandra in the chat. Thanks for joining, Adi. Okay. And f6, yeah, I thought this move might be coming, but this move obviously really puts your bishop in a little bit of a box here. And wow, wasting no time, I Love Legos comes out with f4, just ready to maul black in the center. Look at these pawns coming down the board. It's not going to be pretty. e5, I guess, is white's idea. But there's actually another idea here in the form of f5. Now that you've induced this ugly, ugly move f6, if you can just keep that pawn on f6, keep that bishop locked in this jail, there's something to be said for that as well. So f5 is in fact what white goes for. You know, I'm not entirely certain it was correct in this instance, but it was definitely interesting. c4 now coming with discovered check on the white king, but white has such phenomenal control over these dark squares that I can't imagine this is giving Legos too much consternation here. So we get takes on b3, takes on b3 back, and you know, I almost don't want to go away from this game. This game is quite an interesting one, with Legos trying to put on a masterclass with the two bishops against the knight. In the meantime, taking a look at our scores here, it looks like, yeah, Edward Jones has lost this match. In the games that they did play, it looks like it's going well for them. Alex Kerford is the last remaining game up against Sweetman there. Fishers of Men sweeping his opponent, and it looks like Justini did come back in the second game against DV Dutch. So Edward Jones, the players who are here, did put up a good showing, but with all those forfeits, there's just no way to come back from that. There's just no way. In the meantime, we saw Frank Tan and C-Cell split their second game. And yeah, let's check in on this Alex Kerford game here. So we have, once again, even material. As always, it's a close fight when these two players face each other in this Corporate Chess League. And, well, I'm not entirely certain who I would rather be here. White definitely has some trumps attacking this weak e6 pawn. But in the meantime, the queen side belongs to the black pieces here. This rook can invade on whichever square it chooses. We can also see this rook maybe going after the c pawn as well. Definitely a lot to play for. So, as always, a close, exciting fight between these two players. Let's see what Alex comes up with here. Yeah, we get rook b3 coming in, attacking the c3 pawn. And notably, moves like rook e3 trying to swing over and attack the king, just not on the table here, thanks to this lovely knight that black is posting up on f5. Now, if I'm white, I'm looking for a way to get rid of this knight. I'm looking at stuff like queen f4, g4, get rid of this guy, and then I can focus a little bit more on my attack. Alternatively, we definitely want to be bringing this knight into the powerful e5 square, where it can just exert its dominance over the board. But for the moment, you know, black seems to be a couple tempi ahead on his plan. That being said, queen f7 strikes me as a little bit odd. I would have preferred to see something like just rook c8, just very, very direct, come after this pawn here on c3. Now, you know, this knight's going to be hopping. This knight's hopping in. Knight e5, knight g5, all moves that black is going to have to consider very, very carefully. So a little bit of a scary position now for black. And yeah, Alex goes with rook f8, and I just get the feeling that this is the wrong direction. The queen side belongs to black, but I don't think that the f-file is the huge source of counterplay that Alex is hoping it will be here. And yeah, now, actually, I didn't even see this idea, but knight d7, and the worst has occurred for Alex Kerford. The tricky knights strike again. White now going up the exchange will have the advantage going into the endgame here, although black's knight is still a good piece, so not without hope for black, but of course white should be winning in this position. Okay, with that in mind, I'm seeing some players are getting quite low on the clock, so let's check back in on Desrat against S. Gilmore. And Desrat with the lead on the clock, Gilmore with the lead on the piece count. You know, last we checked in on this position, Gilmore was up a piece seemingly for nothing. So kudos to Desrat making it interesting, because this pawn on b7 really going to be giving Gilmore some serious problems here. You have to find some way to keep this pawn from promoting. Right now, all that stands in the way is this lone rook on b8, but the white pieces are swarming. Rook a8 is coming. I guess that's the idea. Rook a8 is coming. This knight might be able to help, but it might not be enough on its own. We see rook c2 by black, and I really would have preferred to see this rook land on the d2 square, believe it or not. Why is that? Well, I want to come back to the first rank sometimes. I want to just be defending on the back row here, and I'm not going to be able to do that on the c8 square due to this pawn. So interesting choice by Gilmore. Down on the clock. Desrat definitely needs to find some way to keep up the pressure, keep the threats coming. Yeah, rook a8, keep hitting the guy. Now we get knight c6, and now we'll see if white can maneuver this second rook into position. It no longer needs to defend the pawn on b7 because the rook was pinned. Instead, we see a trade, and I'm not a big fan of any trade from white here. You want to keep pieces on, keep it complicated, keep the pressure up until suddenly your opponent finds himself with no time. That being said, it might just tactically be working out. What is rook d1 here? Rook d1 heading for the d8 square. And once again, I might have preferred to have my own rook on the d file if I were playing with the black pieces. Yeah, rook d1 comes. Desrat finds it. Now it's up to Gilmore. Will there be a response here? What can you do? I think black is just going to have to give up this knight, which is not ideal in the slightest. I think you have to go something like, I don't know, maybe even g5. Just get checked. Yeah, okay, so knight c6 actually was forced checkmate for black. Instead we see, or forced checkmate for white. Instead we see white doing the other order, going up a queen. I think more accurate was just making the queen first, allowing black to take, and then rook d8 is simply game over. That's checkmate. Instead, though, white sees the chance to grab the king, to grab the queen, does not go for checkmate, but now this game still looks like it's Desrat's to win. And yeah, now all the black pieces just immediately following these tactics. And that's going to be the match. So huge comeback by Desrat, scoring Darty's first full point. That's the first win for Darty in this match. Impressive stuff. In the meantime, the games are dwindling here. This game between Alex and Sweetman still underway. And yeah, the worst has happened. The worst has happened. Without the extra rook, white is able to capitalize on black's weaknesses, and black is just not able to capitalize on the c3 weakness anymore. And Alex seems to be busted here. I'm not sure there's too much hope in this position. So Sweetman getting revenge on his rival from Edward Jones. In the meantime, we have I Love Legos 2 still fighting hard with 1:10 on the clock. Looks like a good position for black, but at this point, in this kind of time pressure, you can never be certain. You can never be certain. And yeah, I love this move, Queen e3. When you're down, you want to keep pieces on the board, keep things complicated, make it so your opponent still has to think about your threats. That way, if they think for too long, they're out of time and the game is yours. See Queen d3 coming now. And yeah, if you're Legos, you just have to keep the pressure up. Keep those moves coming. Try and not blunder any pieces, but it's speed above all else now. And yeah, Queen c8 check, I love it. You can just check for days with the white pieces now. Queen f5 coming. And it's honestly really tough for black to escape these checks. Only 36 seconds on the clock. Can he keep the pressure up? Queen e6 check now. Where's the king going? Where is the king going? What's going on here? Where's the king going? King h8. And I guess, yeah, Queen c8, the only check now. King h7. And we are repeating moves here, guys. We're just repeating. I think black's going to have to try King f8 at this point. Okay, so we see King f8. Now King f7. And the point should be that after Queen f5, knights are beautiful defenders of the king. And Knight f6 would have stopped any further checks. Instead, Bishop f6. And now the checks are going to keep coming. The question is, does it take white longer to find the checks than it takes black to escape the checks? Whoever moves faster here is going to be winning. Okay, this move was actually a bit of a blunder due to Queen b8, but it doesn't matter. It's a clown fiesta now. Play the moves. Who can play faster? Who's the faster player? Check. And oh no, Lego's going down. There's no more checks. Just plays queen g4. Okay. Yeah, now the roles are reversed. It looks like Lego's just a little bit too slow on that mouse. Definitely Maurice is the faster player in this event. And then it might not even matter because Maurice is finding checkmates. So very close battle. I think this is our last game remaining now between Sweetman and Alex Kerford. Alex down on the clock, down a queen, hoping for some kind of stalemate, hoping against hope. But Sweetman is going to be able to get it done with 2 minutes on the clock here. Yeah, king c7. And now it's as simple as 1, 2, and that is checkmate. Okay, with that game, I believe our first round is entirely concluded. So exciting games from round number 1. Just to recap here, we have Edward Jones. I believe, if the spreadsheet is to be trusted, I believe Edward Jones has officially lost their first round due to all the forfeits. If you're only counting the games that actually got played, they actually narrowly beat Worldwide Technology, with Fishers of Men being the hero there, sweeping his opponent. However, I do think these forfeits are going to be counted, as the players did not give enough notice before dropping out of the event. In the Enterprise Bayer matchup, we had Kamikaze Knight and Chess Hulky, the mainstays of the Enterprise team, the top 2 boards, once again getting it done, sweeping their opponents in straight games, both of them scoring 2 points for the team, and that is enough for Enterprise to win that matchup, take those 20 points straight to the bank for the Grand Prix. And meanwhile, in our main matchup, we saw Ascension clinching the match pretty early on up against Darty. Frank Tan going 1.5 to 1/2 against C-Cell. And if I'm not wrong, that was the only draw in the entire event. This game right here was the only game to end in a draw. Of course, it's a draw because white runs out of time and black has no pieces left. And with that, we are looking forward to a really exciting round 2. So I'm going to be going over some of those games we still have up there to see what actually happened in some of these games. But once again, we're looking forward to a really exciting round 2. It looks like adjustments are still being made to the spreadsheet pairings, though. So it might take a little bit for them to sort everything out. Once again, those last-second dropouts not going to make things easy here tonight for Edward Jones. And especially because they are up against their main rivals, Enterprise. Enterprise, of course, with the super strong Kamikaze Knight and Chess Hulky leading the team. Okay, other than that, we have other exciting matchups. We have Worldwide Technology taking on Darty, and we have Ascension taking on Bayer. Yeah, Alex says crushed. Not so. Not so, Alex. You split 1-1 with your opponent. And in the first round, of course, of the games that actually were played, looks like you won the majority of them. So keeping it interesting, to be sure. Keeping it interesting, to be sure. In the meantime, let's see what happened in this game. This was a very interesting position, if I'm not mistaken. It actually arose from a weird line in the English. Frank trying to play the Scandinavian against everything, it looks like. We saw white getting this early, very nice sort of, I don't know, not a blockade, but pawn chain, hemming in this bishop here on h7, sort of killing that piece. But then since then, the game developed into a very double-sided a battle. You know, white pushing over here on the king side, trying to get at the black king. But then for a while there, it looked like black was the one whose attack was coming more quickly. Loved this move, queen c7. Really would have loved the move b5 here, just highlighting that the white pieces are on the retreat. And I think black could have taken over the game. Instead, though, rook e8 now allows the white knight back in. After bishop d5, we saw, oh, black actually just gave up this rook on a8. Yeah, definitely not advised there. And now the white pieces start entering. And, okay, b4, huge mistake here. You want to open things up on the side of the board where you're attacking. And b4, I think, just locks things down. Yeah, rook c7. Black just trying to hold on now. Knight d5. And white looks to have taken over the game here. But, as I said, the clock reigns supreme in these 10-0 matches. Black with a couple pawns on the king side as well, and it looks like white was able to clean those up. But now with only 15 seconds on the board, or on the clock, white was not able to win on the board with 2 pawns to the good. So there it is. There's your only draw of the whole event so far. Really, really crazy stuff in round 1. Okay, now let's see what's going on in some of these other games. Looks like they are close to getting underway in round 2 here. I don't see any more changes being made to the pairings. Maybe they're just taking a quick break before the second round starts. Oh no, and Adi Chandra is saying goodbye to everybody. Adi, don't leave yet. There's a whole nother round to be played. We're in it for the long haul here in the Corporate Chess League. Hello, Shailesh. Thank you for joining. And yeah, why don't we see what actually happened in this game between Vindy and Kamikaze Knight. Of course, we saw Vindy playing this weird opening with d3, but making the best of it, c3 and then e4, a very sensible approach. And then, yeah, this knight h5 move, and Vindy was just on the back foot then. d4 continues to hit this bishop, h6, and knight into f4. Black really looking to just take over the dark squares here. And by the way, pointing out, this bishop on e2, not such a good piece either. Rook to c1, and wow, the knight's just invaded and captured on d3. And then already just 15 moves into the game, Vindy down to 50 seconds on the clock. That is not good enough time management to survive in the Corporate Chess League. Oh, and we see Gilmore playing some bullet games in between rounds, staying fresh. You'll love to see it. But anyways, this game, rook c4, knight captures on b2, and okay, enough of all that. It looks like round 2 is underway. I just wanted to point out really quickly here that Vindy did lose on time quite early on in this game. Lost on move 20 on time. So looking for him to play a little bit more quickly. In the meantime, though, we are keeping an eye on the big rivals, Edward Jones against Enterprise. Edward Jones, of course, is your reigning champions, and here they are with Giustini Linguini, who got off to a rocky start 1-1 against DV Dutch of the Worldwide Technology team, but now hoping to make his debut events a little bit better. He's got a chance to take down the super strong Chess Holkey from Enterprise, and we'll see if he's able to do it. So once again, we're actually seeing another Benko, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the opening that DV Dutch used in round 1 against Giustini Linguini. I might be misremembering, but I think DV Dutch crushed Giustini in a Benko gambit, and now we see Chess Holkey hoping to repeat that. Maybe he did some prep in between rounds. Maybe he was watching that DV Dutch game, doing some prep for his opponent, and now is hoping to capitalize on the same weaknesses in Giustini's repertoire. With that being said, we saw DV Dutch going for a little bit of a different opening, though. We saw DV Dutch going for this rook a6 idea in the Benko. Of course, this allows queen a8. This queen places some nice pressure on the diagonal, and the rook helps facilitate an e6 break to break things open, attacking the center. Instead, though, Chess Holkey going for a more standard approach here, an older line with queen a5, and now black just brings in the rooks to the queen side. Goes for that classical Benko counterplay, just attacking white's queen side, using those open files to his advantage. We see the knight rerouting back to e5 now, and I think we're in for a very interesting game on board, I guess board 1 now for Edward Jones against Enterprise. In the meantime, let's take a look at the next board down. We've got Alex Kerford up against Money Ballin. Alex with the black pieces once again coming off of a tough loss against his rival Sweetman. Let's see how he's doing in this game though. And wow, it looks like Chris Sell was in the chat there. Of course, Chris had that only draw of the event, and he says it took several days off of his life. Looked like a stressful one, to be sure, to be sure. Okay, but what's going on in this Alex Kerford game? We've got d4, e6, c5, and it looks like a Benoni is Alex's opening of choice, but it's a weird Benoni. Alex bringing this bishop to e7 rather than the g7 square. This has been one of those lines that has never made the most sense to me, but I guess is technically fine. Of course, in the normal Benko, you're going to have this bishop on this nice open diagonal. It helps support your pawns in the center. Really, you're fighting for those dark squares. On e7, the bishop doesn't do as much to aid in that goal, but it does help support this d6 pawn. And maybe that's Alex's idea to help slow down some of those early attacks of the d6 pawn that white can go for in the normal Benoni. By the way, look to see this bishop coming out to f6 later as well. e7 is not its permanent home here, and I'm sure Alex is looking to reroute it later on. We see Alex also bringing the Benoni late squared bishop out early on. After h3, I would have actually expected bishop takes f3. Normally, Benoni players not unhappy about that trade. Once again, it only helps to strengthen control over these dark squares, but Alex has something else in mind. He just puts more pressure on the pinned piece with knight e5, and then he chooses actually to keep this bishop out here on g6. Very unorthodox, but we'll see how it works out for him. White is able now to capture on e5, and I think that this should just be a good structure for white. This protected pass pawn in the center of the board is going to be something black has to keep an eye on, although Alex, I'm sure, is hoping just to blockade this pawn very effectively. We get bishop f3, a6, a4, rook e8, which is definitely not my move of choice. You need this knight here on d6 to blockade this pawn, exert its influence over the e4 pawn, and help support a break in the center. Rook e8, not going to get it done. But that catches us up with the current position here, and now Alex probably looking to break over here on the queen side, come out with b5 and expand on that side of the board. However, I really, really think that this knight just belongs on the d6 square. It would have made these plans much more effective, I think, on the queen side. So things continuing to develop over there, and now let's check in on our third game in the Edward Jones Enterprise matchup. That's going to be between Fishers of Men and Kendulum. What do we have here? Ooh, we have a Caro Kann with 2b4. I've never seen this move in my life. I have played a lot of Caro Kanns in my life, but I am struggling to remember a single time anybody played b4 against me. So, new opening, always learning. Okay, d5, we get takes, bishop b2, and I guess this is the point for white. You just get this bishop fianchettoed very, very early, but to my eyes, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. You're going to want to put your pawn on d4 as white in these openings, especially after exchanging. And so if your pawn's going to be on d4, why is your bishop on b2? It's just going to be staring at your own pawn. But let's see what Fishers of Men had in mind here. He just continues development, breaks now with c4. Black just calmly captures this pawn, plays b5, and fianchettos his own bishop. Keeping it simple, we get castles, knight c3, knight d7, rook e1, rook c8, rook c1, h6. A little slow, but okay. Knight back to e2. And yeah, now Kendulum capitalizing on white's opening play, doubling these pawns over here on the king side. And you can see just how awkward white has made his position here by keeping this pawn back here on d2. This pawn just belongs out on the d4 square. And with this pawn back on d2, it's really tough to maneuver around. That being said, you really don't want it on d4 because you put your bishop over here on the b2 square. It's going to cause some serious problems. So knight g3, Fishers of Men finding some way to maneuver around his own pawn. But again, a little bit of a strange opening, giving him some unnecessary difficulties. Ooh, and John B in the chat says, go money ballin'. I wonder if that is one John Boyer representing the Enterprise team. Chess Holkey might be joining us in the chat. Okay, let's check back in on this game then. We do see Alex now blockading the d5 pawn, not with the knight, but with the bishop. Of course, knights are the best blockaders. That's why I was really rooting for that piece to maneuver over to the d6 square. But Alex has other ideas in mind. And ooh, this is a nasty move by Moneyballin. Queen b6 puts on the pressure on this c5 pawn now, and this is not a problem that's going to be easily solved here. In fact, I'm not seeing a good solution for black. If you play queen c7, white's simply going to take and then take on c5. If you play rook c8, well, then white might just come in with this knight, play something like knight a4, and it's getting really, really difficult to keep that c5 pawn well defended. Okay, what else is going on? Let's check back in on board one of this big matchup here. Ooh, bishop g5. Yeah, very weird move by Moneyballin. Definitely not a fan of this one. That bishop was very well placed on e3. And now to go after this knight on f6 doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Although I should point out that I think I made a mistake in my commentary here. If I play knight a4, looks like you might have a problem on the e4 square. So maybe Moneyballin looking for the solutions to his problems on e4 with bishop g5. Still not a fan, not going to lie. Let's check back in, though, on John Boyer. Speaking of, he's up against Giustini Linguini. And with the black pieces here, what's going on? It looks like temporarily John was up this b3 pawn, Chesholke up this b3 pawn, but white is now able to recapture. We're going to have an endgame with even material, but for the moment, a slightly awkward bishop here on f8. It's going to be tough for black to make use of this bishop, especially if white is able to play something like rook b8. That being said, the more I'm looking, the more I think concretely, black is just going to be able to play bishop b7, bishop f6, keep an eye on this pawn, and keep everything together. And it looks to me like that is, in fact, Chesholke's plan here. We do get rook b8 check, but now this knight on c3 will have to move. And yeah, I'm not in love with how white has actually played this now, because this f3 pawn is going to end up being weak as well. And maybe John Boyer with some winning chances here in this endgame. Okay, let's continue looking around, though. That's enough of this Edward Jones Enterprise matchup. In the meantime, what is going on? Let's see if I can find a player whose game I haven't looked at yet. I think actually I've been to pretty much everywhere, but let's check in on Whittle It. I think Whittle It 3 might be the only player remaining whose games I have not gotten a chance to look at. Let's see if we can pull it up here. I have to close some other ones. Here we go, Whittle It 3 up against Oak Ave. And what's the story? We have a very strange position with a bishop on h7. Black looks to be almost checkmated, but for a second there with the bishop on h3, I thought maybe black had some counterplay, but it looks like Oak Ave once again has this under control. And again, Oak Ave, one of the strongest board fours in the event, I have to say. This guy or girl, I have no idea who they are, but whoever they are, they seem to keep cleaning up all of their opponents. 2 points in round 1 and well on their way towards a points in the first game of round 2. So tough first game for us to look at from Whittle It, but that's okay. All right, let's check back in then, continuing our little circuit here on Fishers of Men. And why don't we stay with this game a little bit? Because I think Kendulum is playing sort of maybe the game of the tournament here, playing just very, very solid chess, very conventional chess. And meanwhile, he's just letting Fishers of Men step on his own toes, keep this pawn on d2 for as long as you like. It's only hampering your queen and your other pieces. In the meantime, you just see a devastating attack starting to form over here on the king's side of the board. That being said, white takes on the d5 square now, and we'll have to see if this kingside play is actually heading anywhere. You know, something like queen g1 looks tempting, but after king to e2, I'm not so sure I see a follow-up. If you give me this check, I can just play knight e3. It looks like that is the path we're following, though. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the most important factor in the position, might be that Pendulum is down to 3 minutes. Fishers of Men staying ahead on the clock, and as always, that is going to be a pretty important factor here. Oh, and I was wrong on our usernames. John Boyer, of course, is Kamikaze Knight, not Chess Holkey. My mistake. So, John Boyer not playing, and all of my kind words for Chess Holkey should go to Chess Holkey and not John, because John's not playing. Am I titled? I am titled, but only barely. I'm a National Master. National Master of Chess. Okay. And yeah, as expected, knight e3, and the attack is being beaten back now with the white pieces able now to access the king's side. But again, I mean, this king's not exactly comfortable in the center of the board, and I think Pendulum has very good chances to win this game. That being said, gotta pick up the pace. Always gotta pick up the pace, Pendulum. These are 10-minute games. No increment, no delay. You have to move quickly. And actually, wait a second. What's going on here? What's going on here? Some sort of counterattack on the g7 pawn. Out of nowhere. And now, yeah, this sometimes happens when you get lower on the clock. You know, you have a great position. You feel like you're ready to do the knockout punch. But if you just get a little bit too impatient and try to rush things with queen g1 check, then you might find yourself on the back foot. And yeah, with the g7 pawn falling, I have to say, I think Fishers of Men might be back in control. It's a strange little fortress this king has in the center of the board, but it seems to be an effective one for now. The black pieces not finding a way in. This knight especially, just being dominated by the white pieces. Okay.
Bishop g5 not work.
And my producer in the studio says bishop g5. Was bishop g5 a good move? And maybe, but I thought f4, you get queen h5 check, king e1.
Bishop f6.
King e1 and takes bishop f6. Okay, maybe it was still under control then. It does look like white still gets some play there. We're going to get bishop f6, knight f5, and some pawns somewhere might be falling. Knight h5 looks very, very complicated. Regardless, though, the main factor is always going to be the clock here. We get rook g7, and yeah, 4.5 minutes to 1.5 minutes. Not looking good for Pendulum. And wait a second, what just happened? I forgot to count the rooks for a second. What is this? No, a simple in-between move. Your rook got captured. You had to take it back, but you can't take it back because your queen is hanging. So overworked piece here on e8, and Pendulum now finds himself down a rook and down on the clock as well. Fishers of Men taking this one home, even though this pawn still stays on d2. One of the weirdest openings I've seen tonight. Oh my god. Oh no. Okay, well, Pendulum gonna be getting his rook back here if he can find queen takes g7, but again, I still expect that Fishers of Men is in the driver's seat here with the big time edge. What is happening in these games? Just what is happening? Yeah, Pendulum taking that rook back, but taking too long to do so. A minute is not a lot of time. Okay, let's check back in with Chess Holkey, who was able to convert that endgame, it looks like, that very nice endgame that he had against Giustini Linguini in game 1. So let's see how he's doing here in game 2. Looks like, what opening did we have? We had a French defense with an early bishop d3, and the more open style games that come from the trade on e4. Then early c4, c5, and yeah, this seems to be a common thread in a lot of these games we're looking at here today. You know, I think our players in the Corporate Chess League might be a little bit overzealous with these center pawns. Pushing this guy all the way to c5, that's going to give black access to this d5 square that he otherwise wouldn't have access to. And I think with that development, you know, black's position isn't looking so bad. I think here, to be sure, white might have a little bit of an edge. This bishop is just so well placed on f3. And, you know, development is going to be very natural, something like bishop e3, castles, queen c2 even. and just bringing the rooks to the center could have been very nice for white. But yeah, committing to c5 and b4, all this stuff, I'm not so convinced. So yeah, knight d5 does come in, and then once again, trying to show that the pawns are overextended, black strikes with b6, opens up this b file, and now, black's pieces are going to be finding homes. We see a trade of those bishops, now queen a4, and yeah, I see no reason why black should be worse in this position. That being said, if there is a reason, it's this a pawn. But again, I'm having a hard time believing it. The white queen can invade the black, the black queen can invade, the black rook can invade, and it's looking like a very pleasant position now for Giustini Linguini. Okay, what else do we have? Let's check back in on Alex against Moneyballin, because they are coming down to the wire here with just a minute left on the clock. Okay, we get queen f4. Alex looking now for some checkmating ideas, it looks like, combining with this idea of e4. Of course, this move is also pressuring this g4 pawn. And what's the plan here, Moneyballin? You gotta keep the moves flowing here. If you slow down too much, you're gonna get down on the clock. And Alex is nothing if not a dirty flagger. That guy will flag you in any position where he can. So you have to be on the lookout. Rook c4, an interesting idea to try and stop it. Of course, this bishop is doing a nice job of defending on f2, so we have a little bit more freedom with the major pieces. And yeah, e4, as I said, is Alex's idea. I think, though, that white should be able to capture this pawn. I don't know if it's better with the queen or the rook. Honestly, I would be more tempted to take with the rook. It just gives us more shelter to run our king back to the center of the board. Once again, we don't have to worry about f2. Our bishop has that guy covered. But positionally, I like white. But knowing who the players are, I think Alex might have the edge here as we get into worse time scrambles. Okay, so we do see queen h2. A quick king f1 by Moneyballin, showing some speed. Maybe I underestimated him. Queen h3 check now. Will we block the check or run? Okay, Moneyballin tries to keep it simple, just blocks. Perfectly fine, except for the fact that it's blundering a rook. Okay, all right, well now it's a bullet game. And we know if I click on Alex's name here, we might be able to see 1700 bullet player, pretty good. Moneyballin, yeah, 1000 rated bullet player. And as expected, as the clocks get low, Alex gets strong. So here, I'm not liking Moneyballin's chances. Once you go down this rook, you just have to bang those moves out one after the other, keep the pressure up, and I don't think Moneyballin is the type of player that excels in that kind of scenario. We see queen g3, giving his king some space is important. But yeah, now the checks start coming, and white is in pretty grave danger here. Queen c4 check, king g1. And that being said, Alex, a little faster would be good. Okay, queen check we see now. Oh, disaster has struck again for Moneyballin. Trying to stay ahead on the clock, he loses his queen. And Alex is able to get it done. A close fight nonetheless with Moneyballin, but Alex does prevail in the end. And with that, of the games played, the score is 2-1 in this Edward Jones Enterprise matchup. So really close stuff here, really close. All right, checking back in, major developments in the game between Giustini Linguini, never going to get tired of saying that, and Chess Holke. It looks like, as expected, these pawns did prove to be a little bit overextended, just push them a little bit too far. And when you do that, they do become weak. Giustini Linguini able to capitalize on that and win those two pawns outright. Now, just the major pieces left. Will Giustini be able to organize his pieces to convert this endgame? I think so. I think there's actually a pretty nasty threat here. Rook c4 looks tempting, but is Chess Holke trying to play rook takes e6? Is that what's happening here? I don't think it works. I think white is, or black is just able to capture, but really devious threats coming from Chess Holke, as expected here. Yeah, John saying he doesn't like c5 there, would have preferred bishop e3 or castles. And yeah, I'm of the same opinion here. I just think simple development doesn't really matter how you do it. You can even play something like queen c2 if you like. Probably you should castle first, stepping out of any checks. But yeah, just castles, bishop e3, queen c2, rooks to the center, and white has a great position. That's all you have to do. c5 is trying a little bit too hard, and now we're suffering the consequences here for Chess Holkey. You know, and as soon as I say that, now I'm looking and I'm seeing things like rook d1. I think black has to play queen a8, and it's just like, oh, the tactics never stop. I think queen a8 would be just enough there, though, for black to not be lost. Defending against, of course, the back rank threat. White tries to be a little bit more tricky. Of course, rook d1 forces queen a8, but queen a8 is not too hard to find once you see the threat. So rook b1 instead, but now, yeah, black just plays h6, gives the king a flight square. No back rank mate for Chess Holkey, and his devious tricks will not be enough here today. Now if I'm white, I'm trying to find some way to swindle my way back in, but it looks like, yeah, more pieces are going to come off the board. Black's going to keep the pressure up, and then we'll see black eventually start to push one of these pawns, but he's in no rush. Oh no, and this is just the worst possible scenario. We had to take on c2. Now black is just able to go for a straight king and pawn endgame with two extra pawns. King and pawn endgame's always going to be decisive here. Okay, with all of that out of the way, why don't we take a look one more time at this Fishers of Men game, and then we'll take a look at some of the other games going on in the other matchups. It looks like, yeah, as expected, Fishers of Men was able to win with that time advantage in game one. Here it looks like we have an early queen trade, and white's trying to put on some pressure here. White definitely way, way, way ahead on development. Black's pieces are just together in a clump on these two open files. Not looking great. So the question now is, can white use this extra development to make some concrete threats, win some material, or will black be able to untangle? If black can untangle, it's a pretty symmetrical position. I don't think white should be too much better. Okay, though, let's check back in on some of these other players. Let's see if I can find, if I close some of these out. Let's see what's going on in this MJC game for Worldwide Technology up against C-Cell 0603. So C-Cell had that heart-pounding draw earlier, and now doesn't look like a heart-pounding draw this time. Looks like a pin. Looks like a pin. And C-Cell is going down in this game. By the way, 500-point rating gap here, so C-Cell really pulling hard for his team, really putting in the work to represent on board one here. Not an enviable task by any means. Meanwhile, let's do a quick update on where we're actually standing here with the results in this round. We have, so far, Edward Jones Enterprise. 2 games, unfortunately, did have to be forfeited for Edward Jones. But aside from that, Alex and Fishers of Men both won their first game for Edward Jones, and Chess Holkey won his first game against Giustini Linguini. Meanwhile, against Worldwide Technology and Darty, we have this round 1 game, game 1 of round 2 between MJC and C-Cell. Aside from that, it's looking good for Worldwide Technology. 2 wins and a draw going down the list. And lastly, in the Ascension versus Bayer matchup, Ascension is off to a commanding lead and I think has actually secured the victory. Frank Tan on board 1, sweeping his opponent Vindy, and Maurice also sweeping his opponent NMC Jin. And that's enough. That's enough for a victory. Okay, with that, what's going on here? Wow, I look away for 2 seconds and an extra bishop has turned into an extra queen, and yeah, C-Cell throws in the towel in this position with that extra queen. So with that, we have a commanding lead for Worldwide Technology, but a comeback is still doable for Darty. They just need 3.5 out of 4 in the second game here. Checking in on some other games, let's see how M. Stadler is doing. I believe this is their Corporate Chess League debut, and they had a rough round 1, but it looks like they're off to a draw in round 2 against Srinivas. and that's a good result. So what's going on in this game? Did we have another Grob from M. Stoddard? No, he's learned from his mistakes. No Grobs in the Corporate Chess League. It's serious business here. We are serious businessmen doing serious business chess. No more Grobs. Okay. Instead, we get some kind of weird tromp, it looks like. Some type of Trompowski, I guess. Knight d7, h6. Very strange opening moves, but the players are getting it done here. I love this move, bishop g3. So far in this event, okay, well, I would love it, but this pawn on c7 is hanging. But the point I'm trying to make here is we've seen players time and time again running into trouble with their loose pieces. You know, when you develop a bishop out early, it does tend to be loose and a little bit vulnerable to attack. So I like the sentiment, put the bishop on a square where it's super well defended and is not going to run into trouble. But of course, in this position, you know, free pawns are free. You gotta munch on those guys while you can. But okay, bishop g3 instead. We see this knight coming, just doing a knight's tour, it looks like. And wow, now c4 comes out, and the knight continues. And oh, yeah, well, this is just no good. This is no good. Queen b4 check, of course, you have to actually continue your knight tour here so as to not lose material. After rook c3, we just see that the pieces are falling off. And black up a full rook. Now white captures that free pawn on c7. And we get our current position, where white is actually just down a full rook. So not so good. If there is one hope for white, it's that this king is currently stuck in the center of the board. Maybe you can imagine some sort of bishop e4, bishop g6 type ideas, especially now that the queen doesn't defend that square. But it's going to be really tough. It's going to be really tough to come back here if you are M. Stoddard. Question from the chat: how many years have I studied chess? I have studied chess for, God, I don't know, it's 2021, probably about 12 years, 11 years, somewhere in there. Long time for me at least. Okay, in the meantime, let's get back up to our marquee matchup, as they would say on our big broadcasts, and check back in with Alex. How is Alex doing in game 2 here? He's off to a good start, has 1 point against Moneyballin in that tight time scramble. He was able to pull out the victory. Now we get g5, and yeah, it's another interesting position here. Moneyballin definitely holding his own against the higher rated Alex. This knight's going to have to retreat. And yeah, Moneyballin has some ideas here. These rooks are coming in and causing some real problems for white's position. I would not be happy if I were Alex. So thinking of that, why don't we stick with this game for a second and see what's going on here, see what Alex is going to come up with in order to stop these threats. You could go something like knight d3, but again, yeah, just rook e2, and knight h5 is not much better. Knight h5 still rook e2. I don't see a reason not to do it. And how are you defending? How are you defending? You can go rook g1, but then I'm going to start chopping on all of these pawns. Yeah, looks tough. Looks very, very tough for Alex. I'm not seeing the solution. Not seeing the way out here. Okay, he does go rook g3, but now again, what happens if I just start taking pawns? I guess Alex is going to try to go for some sort of attack over here. Oh, but yeah, that's a bad blunder by Moneyballin. f4 is a nice idea, trying to get rid of this rook, remove the defender, but of course, this rook is actually pinning the g-pawn to the king, so this knight cannot be captured. That being said, it's not totally busted yet for black. These rooks are still very, very active and are going to be causing white some problems for a while here. Definitely for a while. All right, let's stick with it here. Alex still has problems to solve. You know, maybe we're going to see some really, really strange repetitions of moves with knight d3, rook e2, knight f4, rook f2. But yeah, I'm not so sure I believe it. Black at any moment could just decline the repetition with something like rook d5 and keep the game going. Knight d3, and again, oh my, what is this? What is this? Knights move backwards, Moneyballin. Knights move backwards. Ugh, another bad blunder, and Alex, once again, with that blunder, I think is going to be in control. And yeah, we see some very quick moves now from Moneyballin. I can feel the tilt through the computer screen. He had such a good position, and now it hurts. It hurts to see it slipping away, like this. Yeah, knight d4, I mean, you had to defend your b-pawn as well. I guess Moneyballin is going for some tricky tricks here, some tricky ideas of going for checkmate. Oh, wow! Oh, no! Alex, no! G4, blunder of the century! Knight f3, how do you stop checkmate? Oh my god. Oh my goodness gracious. You can't even check because the square is defended. That's just checkmate in 2. It's checkmate in 2! Knight f3, checkmate in 2. And wow, I'm glad we stuck with this game. That is a bad pattern to miss here. Yeah, g4 just undefends this f3 square. You needed this pawn in front of your king. The knight and the rook, they're not a lot of pieces, but they're enough for checkmate with the king stuck in the corner. Yeah, of course, black is just playing rook h2 on the next move. You cannot stop it. If you go rook h7, I take it. Rook b6 is not possible because of pawn takes. There's just no defense here. There's no defense for Alex. Yeah, Musty, is this scripted? It's not scripted, I promise. I promise it's not scripted. Sad loss here for Alex. Very, very sad. And I can't look at that anymore. I just can't look at that anymore. I gotta look away. Gotta look away. Okay, so what's going on in this game? We have Vindy not playing his game in the Corporate Chess League. It looks like he's actually finished. He's just playing some random game on chess.com. So we'll leave him to do that. Are there any other games in progress? This is the last game? I think this is the last game. So this is an extraordinary end then to this action tonight. Alex is blundering checkmate with g4. You hate to see those kinds of mistakes. But then again, Moneyballin did have a very good position until he had a couple bad blunders himself. Rook e1, Alex always trying to keep it interesting, daring black to capture this rook on e1, allowing the white king to escape its prison. But Moneyballin will not be fooled. He finds the checkmate right there. There it is. Wow. And that, I think, concludes our games here tonight. Let's take a quick look at how this impacted our standings, if this is all functioning. And yeah, it looks like we have a couple really big winners tonight. If this math is accurate, Worldwide Technology is coming away with 42.5 Grand Prix points. Is that accurate? Is that accurate? Yeah, so they won against Edward Jones in round 1. They win against Darty in round 2. That makes them the big winners tonight with 42.5, wait, oh God, oh no, oh no. Okay, so that math I think is actually no, that probably is the correct math. So they got 40 points for winning their matches, and then it looks like they might have scored 22.5 points in their individual games, with each player playing 4 games tonight. That might be accurate. So yeah, the big winners tonight. It looks like Worldwide Technology wins both of their matches, off to a good start. Enterprise wins both of their matches, and Ascension wins both of their matches. Is that true? Ascension does the clean sweep against Bayer in round 2 and defeats Darty in round 1. So yeah, those are your 3 big winners in the first night of the Corporate Chess League here, with those 3 teams winning both their matches. There is plenty of time left in the season though, for Edward Jones and Bayer and Darty to make a big comeback. Of course, Edward Jones had some logistical issues tonight, I believe, and that is why they unfortunately had to forfeit so many games. Of course, once they get their full roster back, I expect they're going to start winning on these Thursday nights. So, what a start to the Corporate Chess League fall season. I had a great time going over all of these games, and what a finish as well with that knight f3 unstoppable checkmate by Moneyballin against Alex. So I want to thank you all very much for joining me. Hopefully you all had a great time competing here tonight and watching these corporate chess players duke it out on chess.com. It's always a blast. With that in mind, my name is Caleb Denby, and I will see you 2 Thursdays from now, September 30th. Be there.